for personal use, a court ruled. Nicknamed Bello because of his good looks, the married Ngonga gained notoriety last year when he appeared in leaked videos having sex with different women, many of them wives and relatives of people close to the centre of power. The leak occurred while he was in detention, accused of depositing a huge sum of embezzled money into secret accounts in the Cayman Islands. Ngonga's arrest last October and public humiliation was seen as an attempt to destroy any hope he had of becoming the next president of the oil-rich Central African state. Human Rights Watch has issued a plea to Lebanon to end the imprisonment of one of the sons of Libya's late dictator Muammar Gaddafi. The group says Hannibal Gaddafi has been wrongly imprisoned for a decade. The BBC's Jacob Evans has the details.
After visiting Hannibal Gaddafi in prison in Beirut earlier this month, Human Rights Watch says he's never been tried and describes his detention as arbitrary. Mr. Gaddafi was arrested by Lebanese officials in 2015, close to the border with Syria, where he'd been living since his father's regime was toppled 4 years earlier. He says he was lured by the prospect of a fake newspaper interview. He's been accused of withholding information about a Lebanese cleric who disappeared in Libya in 1978. At the time, he was just 2 years old.
The UK Foreign Office has summoned Russia's ambassador after strikes on Kyiv killed at least 17 people, including 4 children. Dozens more were injured in the overnight strikes, which also damaged British Council and EU mission buildings. Ukraine's President Zelensky accuses Moscow of choosing ballistics instead of the negotiating table, while UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says Russia's senseless attacks are sabotaging hopes of peace. Adding his voice, the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned Russia's deadly missile and drone attacks on Ukraine. According to the UN spokesperson Stephen Dujarric, Guterres has again called for a ceasefire leading to peace that fully upholds Ukraine's sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity. Recapping the top story this hour. Rwandan President Paul Kagame and visiting Mozambican counterpart Daniel Chapo have signed key agreements in peace and security. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African perspective.
In a sports headline, Netball South Africa is up in arms over exorbitant legal invoice from World Netball. TS Galaxy chairperson insists that transfers from his team is in the best interests of the South African football. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 7 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Here's what we've got on the agenda this afternoon. An interesting relationship between the Ethiopian Investment Holdings and the Dangote Group. They've signed a shareholders agreement to develop, construct and operate a world-class urea fertilizer production complex in Ethiopia. We'll be speaking this afternoon to Mered Fikirhanis, founder and CEO of Pragma Investment Horizon. Also coming up in just a few minutes, actually, our weekly conversation around the G20. Our focus today is Women in Africa, or Women to Africa, a summit that will be taking place tomorrow and hosted by Standard Bank in collaboration with the G20 Empowerment of Women Working Group. This is co-hosted every single week by myself, Thami Ngubeni, and SAFM's Ashraf Garda and the National Pulse. It is exactly 8 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Now, delegates at the Serious Social Investing Conference, which is currently underway at the Gordon Institute of Business Science in Johannesburg, South Africa, say collaboration is key to driving meaningful social investment and building resilience as well as dignity in vulnerable communities. But with youth unemployment still one of Africa's biggest challenges, the question remains: what practical investments in skills development can truly unlock young people's potential in the economy? Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Simosa has more.
Now in its 17th year, the 2025 Serious Social Investment Conference has brought together more than 200 business leaders, policymakers, development practitioners, and social investors. The conference is hosted by Chikululu Social Investments under the leadership of its CEO, Liane Emery Hunter.
So we are wanting to learn. We are wanting to share some of the learnings that we have as being a leader in social investment and working with partners who are deeply invested in social impact. So we want to share our learnings. More importantly, we want to learn. And we want to really ensure that this is just the start of conversations. We want commitments to be forged today, and we want the conversations to continue. And if we can, during this time, find projects that can systemically create change and see how we can collaborate, both in the philanthropic space, private space, government partners, how do we collaborate to create sustainable change?
Delegates are confronted with the urgent question, can social investors help rebuild a nation in crisis, especially given the high unemployment, service delivery, and inequality challenges in the continent? Executive for Sustainability and Shared Value at MTN Group, Mariana Madale, weighs in.
When the invitation came, we felt that it's a great opportunity to speak about some of the trends of what's happening in social investment, to reflect more on how we can deepen and scale the impact, and then ultimately how we can work across multi-sectoral bodies such as small businesses, bigger businesses, civil society organizations, and government, because the kind of social issues we face within the African continent requires greater coalition and partnerships to be able to systemically address unemployment, economic disparities, and the likes.
She also shared steps that MTN is taking to ensure ordinary citizens feel the benefits of corporate social investments.
So the Skills Academy that I spoke about particularly is available in 11 countries across the continent in English and French. And what we've also done is we've built in an accessibility function to enable persons with disabilities, different divergent challenges like ADHD and so forth to better access such platforms. And then we have various programs across the continent around entrepreneurship and ensuring not only more participation of women, but all members of society at the end of the day.
Tato Mdambo of Mercedes-Benz South Africa highlighted some of the challenges the continent faces in advancing meaningful social investment.
I think a lack of access is probably one of the strongest impediments to youth unemployment that we find in South Africa, and I think continentally as well. As an organization that has been in South Africa for over 67 years, we've built a formidable network and ecosystem of collaboration with people in the automotive value chain. And I think when you combine that access and giving access to young people as well as that network as well, we're able to see results and impact of our contribution in terms of development. So I definitely think that collaboration of people in the value chain and the ecosystem plays a huge role in changing the outcomes and the outlook for a lot of young people in South Africa.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Simosa in Johannesburg.
The KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau, in collaboration with Milvest Advisory and the city of Umhlathuze, bring you the 2025 Tourism Investment Forum Africa. As a global platform for local action, the Tourism Investment Africa aims to promote the secondary and tertiary cities and regions as attractive investment and tourism hubs. Be part of the movement transforming tourism in Africa. Join us for the TIFA 2025 from August 27 to 29 at Tembela Venue, Richards Bay, KZN, South Africa. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628. Africa and SAFM, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
It is exactly 15 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. Delighted once again to be bringing you our weekly feature where we focus on the G20, co-presented and co-hosted by myself, Thami Ngubeni, on Africa in Business on Channel Africa, and the one and only Ashraf Garda hosting the National Punts on SAFM. A very good afternoon to you.
Right, so here we are. We're just about to the end of Women's Month. It's amazing how August has gone by so quickly, right? But therefore, our G20 Countdown feature today focuses on women and women empowerment and looking at the issues that women need to ensure that they are at the very center of South Africa's economic future. The Women to Africa Summit, Tommy.
A really exciting gathering that's going to be taking place tomorrow. That is a gathering of policymakers, business leaders and entrepreneurs with one objective: to discuss strategies for advancing women's participation in Africa's economic growth. And this afternoon, we're going to be talking to Standard Bank. They, in collaboration with the G20 Empowerment of Women Working Group, are going to be hosting the summit.
Absolutely. Now, the G20 Empowerment of Women Working Group, and the acronym is EWWG, so Women to Africa Summit, aims to highlight the role of women in shaping sustainable development and strengthening Africa's position in the global economy. I would think, based upon our callers, they always say, like, okay, how does it really work? So let's find out more about it. We're joined on the line by Lindeka Dzedze, the Head of Strategic Partnerships for Global Markets at the Standard Bank Group.
A very good afternoon to you, Lindeka. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Perhaps let's start off. I did somewhat explain what the objectives are, but, you know, there's no better place to hear it than straight from the horse's mouth. And you, for the intents of this conversation, happen to be that horse as the representative for Standard Bank. So perhaps let's start there. The main objectives of the Women to Africa Summit, which is hosted under the G20 Empowerment of Women Working Group. And while you're at it, how did Standard Bank, in the midst of all the other financial services providers, be the one to spearhead this along with the G20 group?
Thank you. I think for the most important thing for the day for us is we know there's been a lot of work around the G20 Empowerment of Women Working Group and other lobby groups. But one of the things that we wanted to do was to actually gather in one space, in one room, where we can have leading voices in the continent, really, in the diaspora, across sectors and public sector, and to actually have an action-driven dialogue on how the gaps are known. You know, what is the coordinated action that we need to take to close the gap? We are all looking forward to an action-driven dialogue on gender equality and financial inclusion. And I think the most important thing for us is that making sure that we have men as essential partners in the conversation, because these are the people that we need to shift institutional power and actually solution together. What is most important and why Standard Bank is involved? This is important to Standard Bank. Gender is inherent in everything that we do across the bank. And we actually together and partnered with governments across the continent and with Jura, the investment manager, to launch the African Women Impact Fund, which aims to build a sustainable platform to grow the number of women-owned and women-led fund management businesses that in turn actually tend to invest in other women. So this is something that we've done, and we have an exciting announcement that's going to take place on the day, but I don't want to give that away. So that is the whole point of tomorrow. It is, how do we translate declarations into actions? Because women are tired. We do not want any more shop talk. We want to make sure that we can come into a room to agree on what needs to happen and start building a framework that we can take out of that room and start building on, because G20 is going to leave, but we will be here. So this is a start of something that we're hoping that is going to be an industry-driven work around actually solutioning for where finance comes from, where funding and access to market is for women, that women have been screaming about for days now.
Well, that's so fascinating, Lindeka, because, I often talk about linking personal purpose to the national purpose. And the absence of that, for me, is always a void that we have in our country and perhaps in other countries around the continent and around the world. So it is in that context of making this link. Let's talk about this. What about the G20 Empowerment of Women Working Group, and how will that group and the Women to Africa Summit link women's empowerment to Africa's competitiveness in the global economy? Because as we have seen from the political shifts globally, nobody's going to dish out favors. You have to develop a way to be globally competitive.
So I always say this, financial inclusion is not a charity, it's actually a sustainable business. It actually allows you to grow new revenue pools that actually have a tangible impact in terms of our communities. So it grows our businesses, it grows our communities. The G20 Empowerment of Working Group is driven at a government level, but any declaration thereof that goes forward has to be translated into action. That cannot happen alone. The government has done enough work in terms of policies. There's been frameworks that have been done, yet the barriers still persist and the gaps are still there. So the collaboration to say, as private sector, how do we intentionally partner with government to actually translate the declarations into actions and make sure that we then come back and actually measure those, tangibly, purposely measure those, and be able to report back. So it's no longer just saying government is doing X, but how do we partner? G20 is going to go away. We will still be here. And this is more important for us as South Africa, but not only as South Africa, but as a potential to uplift the entire GDP of the continent. Because the numbers are there that says if you actually make sure that women participate in the economy, it has the potential to uplift the entire GDP of the continent. That cannot be led by government alone. It has to have private sector. We have to take ownership of that. So it's that movement now from shared, isolated efforts into shared accountability as a sector, across sectors, because it's not just finance, it's DFIs, it's private, it's corporates across the continent. That's what's exciting about us. So now we're going to do it ourselves, and then we bring in academia because we don't want to also mark our own homework. But I think there's more action, and I think there's a feeling in the air that everyone wants this to shift now. Hence, we're all doing it.
And I want to pick up on that, Lindega. You've really made it a point to, as you say, that we've got to move from declarations to actions, that women are tired of talk shops, summit after summit, and yet none of that actually translates into anything tangible that will impact their lives. I'd like us to get into the nitty-gritty of what expectations you have. What are the commitments specifically, or the partnerships that are expected to emerge from this gathering? Because ultimately, I guess you want these commitments, you want these conversations, these agreements, these partnerships to influence the policy discussions within the G20 framework.
So there's been pre-work that has been happening. So we're not gathering tomorrow out of the blue. There's already been engagements with all the key stakeholders. We are working with professors at GIBS that are looking into a thought leadership piece that will actually summarize and take out the key thematics that will come out of the sessions tomorrow. We also know that we already also, as those who are participants in the ecosystem where the gaps are, hence we're talking about collaborative ecosystems. There's a huge focus in terms of what I do as Standard Bank, what ABSA does, what Investec does, what JP Morgan does, what ABE does. But is there an opportunity for us to say, here's where the gaps are? Maybe there's a huge concentration in these areas where women are actually lacking in this. So there's already work that's being done, and AFDB is huge on the data that we're looking at. So there's already partnership in terms of we need localized data that speak to our own lived realities so that we know that we actually work on something that we know. So there's work that we're thinking we're plotting on from a thought leadership and data perspective, where there's already sort of commitments and people said we're putting our hands up to do this work. And after that, when I walk out of there with a sort of a framework in terms of the key areas that we all want to get involved in, and then some sort of implementation modalities, even if it's not fully refined, because we're not going to stop tomorrow. The point is we're going to regroup. We're looking at putting some dates on the ground, as in March next year. Do we come back with a framework that we can then work together? And one of the things that's important I want to actually note is that, remember, we're not reinventing the wheel here. There's been work that has been done by from the women that were in Nairobi 40 years ago, Beijing Declaration, platform for action. So we're building off all of that, and there are working groups within South Africa and across that are doing work, like with Corner and others. So it is now coming together to say, instead of working in silos, how to work together and also bring the institutions on board. So their plan is we have an action-driven day, come up with thematics and areas where we want to partner, have the thought leadership and that data, and walk out of there with the people that want to partner. I can tell you now, the other banks that I'm working with have already been messaging that we want to partner next year, we want to drive this together. So there's already that shift, if I may call it, in terms of before you want to do things as yourself, as Standard Bank with ABSA, there's already that desire to actually partner in solutioning. So those are the key areas we're saying that there's a framework that we're going to walk out with, some data we want to put in the ground, some data that we want to do, and some thought leadership that will be driven by those in the academia. And then government is also keen to partner going forward with the private sector to drive this and own it.
Now, let me end with this. I mean, we talk about the long-term impact of the Africa of the summit itself, right? So, what for you would be the long-term, lasting impact, and how would you measure it?
The funding gap, access to finance. If you speak to any, and I think it will be, that's the data firstly that we're looking for, right? Because nobody, there's a Wi-Fi code that's out there where we all want to make sure we're measuring the same things. So that Standard Bank is, you're publishing your own data and somebody else. That public declaration of the data is important. Measuring purposely, and all of us being able to say, this is how many women have been funded. So far, we all see the same number of women getting funding, and there's yet not much is moving in the Dow. I guess the actual numbers of women, because everyone talks about the date statistics, we want to be able to say we funded how many. Mm-hmm. So, for example, within the foundation that is part of AWIF, a Standard Bank, we have now funded 10 women where you can see their faces and you know their names and the data is published. That is going to be the one thing. The reporting is going to be crucial to actually put the numbers out and you're going to see the faces. I think that's the commitment that the whole Wi-Fi code, that is the project of We20, is important. The declaration, because right now everybody publishes their own numbers. I don't think there's a set standard that we all adhere to. And I think once that is something that we take forward, that will actually be able to give us the numbers.
All right. I'm going to keep an eye on that access to funding matrix, Thami.
No, certainly. What an exciting, development, because ultimately you have to be comparing on the same scale. That's the only way to be able to measure with integrity and really be able to see what progress is being made by the industry. Ms. Lindega Nzeze, Head of Strategic Partnership for Global Markets at Standard Bank Group, wishing you all the best for the Women to Africa conference, or summit rather, that's taking place tomorrow under the G20 flag. It's exactly 28 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Ashraf Garda, always a pleasure, and looking forward to our time once again next week as we focus towards the big November where the G20 summit will be held.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability. The KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau, in collaboration with Milvest Advisory and the city of Mhlathuze, brings you the 2025 Tourism Investment Forum, Africa. By positioning these regions for sustainable growth, TIFA helps drive their economic ambitions while providing access to critical capital, networks, and strategic insights on investments in the trade services sector, such as tourism. Join us for the TIFA 2025 from August 27 to 29 at Tembela Venue, Richards Bay, KZN, South Africa. Be part of the movement transforming tourism and infrastructure in Africa. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
So how are the markets looking like this afternoon? Let's head over now to the markets desk, where Thabiso Lehoko is standing by with your latest market indicators at 4:30 p.m.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks to Thami, and this is how the markets are looking. $1 in South Africa is trading at 17 Rand 68. In Botswana, It's at 13.31 Namibia, 17 Namibian dollars 68, and in Zambia, the dollar is trading at 23.33. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 455. Ethiopia, 142 birr 87. Uganda, 3,000 shilling 540, and in Tanzania it is trading at 2,000 shilling 544. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,534 naira. In Egypt, it's at 48 Egyptian pound 602. Tunisia, 2 dinar 891. Algeria, 129 dinar 412. And in Morocco, the Moroccan dirham is trading at 8,946 to the dollar. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is at 2,847 to the US dollar. A look at commodities markets now. Gold is trading at $3,403 and platinum $1,347 per ounce. Brand crude oil is at $67.95 a barrel. For any business news or stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoku.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And standing by with the latest from the business of sport, here is Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good afternoon, Thami. We begin with the business of sport in netball. World Netball's that's WN, has sent an invoice to Netball South Africa that reflects an amount of $21,000, which NSA, Netball South Africa, have been ordered to pay by the 30th of September 2025. World Netball is demanding NSA to pay for legal fees for the preliminary investigation conducted on suspended President Cecilia Molokwane. The NSA executive in anonymity says this is a massive amount which can be used to fund critical programs for the national teams, especially the baby Proteas scheduled for a final camp before they depart for the Netball World Cup in Gibraltar. The fifth edition of the Hollywood Bets Durban 10km 2025 race has reached a record-breaking 12,000 participants, which comprises a formidable field of 72 professional athletes and thousands of social runners embracing the spirit of community and fitness. A lucky runner will stand a chance to win a brand new car, Renault Kiga, worth $19,207. Renault South Africa General Manager for Marketing, Leanne Stanton, speaks on the sponsorship partnership.
Not only is the partnership beneficial to Renault as a brand, but to me in my personal capacity as a runner, but sadly I'm not destined to be an athlete. So on a more serious note, there are a lot of reasons why we are partnering with Hollywood Bets. For one, obviously a very well-established brand, a very visible brand. As we came through the airport, all you see is Hollywood Bets. So just from a brand collaboration, it's really, really great. One of the other reasons is that Hollywood Bets obviously supports athletics, and they're very committed to that sporting code.
On to football business. Liverpool have added to Arne Slot's backroom staff with the appointment of Luis Fernando Lubel as their new individual development lead coach. The Brazilian has stepped down from his position as assistant coach of Atlético Mineiro and will start on Merseyside on the 1st of September after being granted a work permit. Lubel's arrival means a change of role for Aaron Briggs, who is said to be confirmed as Liverpool first team set-piece coach. Briggs has been individual development coach since joining Liverpool in July 2024. And TS Galaxy chairperson Tim Sugas insists Kamogelo Sibilebele's transfer to Orlando Pirates is in the best interest of South African football. Sibilebele's move by his market value as of May 2025 was $943,000. The Rockets agreed to sell the versatile 23-year-old to their Betway Premiership rivals ahead of the new season, a move some critics argue has weakened coach Adna Beganov's squad by stripping away one of its key assets. Sugazi has consistently defended Galaxy's model of developing talent and selling top-flight clubs or even abroad.
At TS Galaxy, we always apply reason to these matters. So we are known now to be a club that affords opportunity to players. And when we do these transfers, we look at a number of variances. And sometimes it could be reasons to the benefit of the club, or it could be reasons to the benefit of football, or a balance, of the two. We always try to strike some good balance in the end.
Sugazi says despite the criticism leveled against him for selling players that will help them challenge for the championship, he says they have a bigger picture when it comes to football in the country.
We want obviously to keep our sustainability, or to maintain at least our sustainability levels at our club. Let me put an example. A Mike Kamogelo Subilebele, who is a transfer not necessarily to the benefit of TS Galaxy, to the benefit of Football South Africa. We also look at that at TS Galaxy.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
She builds, she leads, she rises. This August, join Channel Africa in celebrating the women who shape our communities, shift narratives, and carve out a future on their own terms.
These women together ought to be able to turn it right again.
From Cape Town to Kigali, Lagos to Lusaka, African women are rewriting the script. Here's to courage, creativity, and unstoppable progress. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
From markets to innovation, Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 4:37 Central African time. Now, the Red Hat Technology Innovation, which is an open hybrid cloud technology company, hosted a media roundtable in Johannesburg, South Africa, exploring Africa's technology future with discussions on AI, cloud adoption, and the evolution of hybrid work models. Channel Africa's Sisi Sekhalo attended the event and filed the following report.
Red Hat provides hybrid cloud infrastructure, application services, cloud-native development and automation solutions based on open source technologies. The company says they enable organizations to build great products for customers, and they've got partners that certify technology on their platform. AI and cloud ecosystem lead for Sub-Saharan Africa, Eugene D'Souza, says companies and developers in the region have to compete globally, but with limitations. He says, however, they do not have to do it alone.
I think anybody globally can leverage on this, and for Sub-Saharan Africa in particular, I think it's very important that those that are creating applications, developing applications, or deploying automation for IT infrastructure or AI infrastructure don't try to do this alone. They don't need to do it alone anymore. They now have the best of breed in class. They can start to develop solutions to problems that their customers have had for a long time that they potentially wouldn't be able to do in the past, and now they're able to do it.
The company Red Hat sponsored a group of 4 learners, which some of them are from the townships in Gauteng province of South Africa. The group has developed an app called VukaLearn, which is still in the process of being launched, but has solutions to some of the societal problems. A member of the team, Ivan Gavenda, speaks on their app.
Usually, students struggle with how teaching is done nowadays. A lot of people are starting to use different methods such as flashcards, quizzes, past papers. It's not just the same methods anymore. So that's one of the features of VUCA Learn. It takes your textbooks or your study material and it puts into different learning formats. You can have games, podcasts, activities, reward programs. Another catch of VUCA Learn, what makes it different is there's something called Auntie B. A lot of the problem that students have was they don't have a social worker or a therapist per se, but this specifically Auntie B is something like a specific therapist for students and their needs in school, whether it be in their personal lives or in their school lives.
Not only does the app focus on learning, but most importantly, it gives the youth access to mental health services. Governor again.
A lot of students suffer from mental health issues. So one of the things that we added was a mood calendar. So you would express your mood per day. It's like something when you log into the app, it asks you. And this basically logs it. This helps the Auntie B to understand your problems and how it works.
The group of learners wish to partner with relevant stakeholders, including government and the private sector, to have the app launched. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa in business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 4:41 Central African time, and in the C-suite today, we have a former rugby player, not just a rugby player, but a former professional rugby player. He's also a multi-award-winning entrepreneur. He is Kyle Meadows. His bold decision to leave the sport behind and pursue entrepreneurship led him founding businesses, Nexa Growth Group and Galilee Wealth, companies that are focused on scaling businesses, unlocking purposeful capital, and also helping leaders build ventures that create long-term generational impact. Today, Meadows is among South Africa's most influential business figures, using his journey to mentor future leaders as well as champion purpose-driven businesses. He joins us now on the line. What a pleasure to be hosting you in our C-suite this afternoon. Kyle, welcome.
What a privilege. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time out of the day to interview a no-name brand like myself. We're all here to serve. So, I thank you for choosing me. I don't take it lightly. It's a massive honor. I love your show. I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Well, it's awesome having you. And I must say, Kyle, I'm not very surprised that you call yourself a no-name brand, because I looked at your LinkedIn profile and you call yourself a failed professional rugby player. What is that about?
So I think we find ourselves in a place where failure determines who we are. For a lot of us, we throw our titles as our identification. So you are a CEO, you are this, you are that. But I've always seen it as a position that I did fail in rugby. I did. I'm not in work, didn't go where I wanted to go. But that didn't determine who I was as an individual. And that gives people so much power to say, man, I failed. I did. But that failure didn't determine who I was. It was just a re-pivotization of where I should go in life. And rugby just wasn't that journey. So I want people to see failed, to know that I'm just a person. I'm not anything special. But they as well are chosen and they're positioned in a place to achieve great things with their life, regardless of where they come from, regardless of who they are, setbacks, challenges, to believe that your failures didn't determine who you are, and they'll never will determine who you are going forward.
And what an important point you actually make, because as you're speaking, I'm thinking failure is relative. For somebody else, just being a professional rugby player, for themselves, that would be a success. But because for you, you didn't reach the heights that you wanted to reach within that professional career, and therefore you call it failure for yourself. But how did your family receive your pivoting from professional rugby to then pursuing a business career? And why business? Is this something that was always in your bones?
No, I never wanted to go into business, and I'll be very honest to say it, and everyone must hear it, that business was not something I wanted to do. It was never my calling for life, I believed. I wanted to be a rugby player. I trained very hard, and I did everything that I can, and it just didn't work. Now, I can sit here and I can blame coaches, and I can sit here and blame everyone around me, but I just wasn't good enough. and that's the reality. And I did everything, but it didn't work. So my journey into business was one where I was kind of forced, where I had no other option. My family wasn't too happy about the move from rugby into business. I think there was this massive expectation that I made it, or whether that expectation was from them or from myself, I will never know. But I realized that my life was now going to be used to add an impact. So we started our first business and it failed miserably. Started second business, failed miserably. And third one was started to reach great success. 22 became a top company in the country. And I realized that we could either throw this title on myself now and be the big man in the room, or can I say that how does this pivot and how does this impact our nation? We sit in a place which is in a reality of 70% of youth, 18 to 25, is unemployed. Now, I'm not going to sit here with that statistic and say that's good. I want to be the person that uses business to give hope for someone else, that uses business to be able to put food on someone else's table. And what a calling in life that I'm so privileged to be able to help people put food on a table, to put food on a table for myself. So it wasn't something that I wanted to do, but it was something that I've embraced, and I understand that this is the responsibility behind the business. The accolades, the awards mean nothing if it's not impacting people, and that's all we can do. And that's what I'll serve my life in business to do, is drive that impact.
I want to move forward, but I really can't before asking you this. How far did you go with the professional rugby?
So I played for the Vodacom Bulls. I never played an official cap. I was in the training team holding the tackle bags. I went overseas to a club called SAXV Charonet Rugby in France. It's close to a place called Bordeaux in France. So I can speak French, which was quite exciting, a different adventure on its own. And then around the age of 21, so I had a 3-year stint, and I realized, I played rugby for the wrong reasons as well. I didn't care about the team, and I've been open enough to say this. I was all caught up in the lights and the glamour and everything that came with sport, and I made that my identity, and realizing that my identity was not rounded and founded in a good place. You moved by anything. Good times, you're on a great high, and if the times went low, man, you find yourself in this horrible place. And I realized that that's not the life for me, so I ended up hanging my boots up then and there and went straight into what I thought was next, and that was business.
So you have built successful companies like Nexa Growth Group as well as Galilee Wealth, and you've built those, as you've said, from the ground up. What would you highlight as perhaps some of the biggest challenges of starting up? And being a sports person, what virtues or characteristics could you correlate between being a sports person and being a business person?
That's a great question. So we look at heroes like Usain Bolt, Wade van Niekerk, and all these guys. They train 4 years in the darkness when no one sees them. There's no lights on them. For, in Usain Bolt's perspective, 10 seconds, under 10 seconds. So you're willing to sacrifice 4 years of your life when no one's watching you day and night for 10 seconds of glory. That's business. In business, you see a lot of the good stuff. You see the awards, you see these all positives, but there's a lot of times where you sit in a place and you don't know whether you should carry on or whether you should quit. Businesses have challenges. There's lots of challenges. I'll tell you a good story, and I always want to come on these shows and be very open and honest so people can see it. We run Nexa. I trust and I do the work for 4 proposals. In 1 week, I lose my biggest client and 4 proposals go down the drain, all decline in a space of an hour. Now, when you see stuff like that, what do you say? 50% of the entire company's profit is out the window. It's difficult and it's tough, and it's all these stories that I can give myself, but there are other people waiting at the end of me to get through this. There's employees that need to be paid. There's families that are relying on this income. That's what drives me. And when you have that driving to say that when you run business, you have to understand that if you're doing it for yourself, it's going to be very difficult. You have to have something in the back of your head that motivates you. And for me, was motivating people, giving people jobs, giving people opportunities, giving people to show themselves. And that's what gets me through business. But starting out in the beginning, no one knows your name. You have no track record. You have no one to believe you. And the question is, how do you get clients? But I've realized it's being faithful with one client. So if you can get one client, being faithful and working harder than anyone and serving them and leading them and helping them, that by doing, they say those who can be trusted with little can be trusted with much. So being trusted in the little over time, if by doing the right things all the time, good things happen. So I believe that for other businessmen, other businesswomen that want to start, is being able to work in the dark, in private, and being able to have delayed success, but also being able to believe in yourself and believe that you're doing this to impact more than yourself, but impact the nation who needs it the most.
Carl Meadows, very well said. Thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure hosting you and wishing you continued success with the various businesses and the impact that you are creating on the ground. We thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. May this channel go across the nation. May it touch more people. This is only the start for this beautiful channel. You're an incredible host. I believe that there's great things coming for this channel, and may everyone be touched hearing this to know that they can do it. And that's all I'd love to leave with you guys.
Oh, so much appreciated. And you know what? We embrace it all so wholeheartedly. And all that you have wished upon us, we wish upon you as well. Thank you, Carl. That's Carl Meadows, founder of Nexa Group, as well as Galilee Wealth. He's also a former professional rugby player, taking us to exactly 10 minutes to 5 p.m.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
So when you think of African music, you think of Kwasa Kwasa, high life music from West Africa, Afrobeat from West Africa, of gospel music or faith music or spiritual music. But when we think of reggae music, we go to the Caribbean, and if it's Africa, we only think about Lucky Dube. Well, I'm here to introduce you to some reggae music from Africa. Salif Keita with Dakan Faye from Mali, and I must say this one was a real shock for me because I never had imagined Salif Keita on a reggae beat, but listening to him, it just proved to me how versatile he is as an artist, because you'd be expecting him to be on that vibe of West Africa, of Mbalax, but he really proved that he is very versatile, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
As we wrap up our time together this Thursday, let's turn our focus to Ethiopia and developments in that part of the continent. Ethiopian Investment Holdings, which is a strategic investment arm of the government of Ethiopia, as well as the Dangote Group, have signed a shareholders agreement to develop, construct, as well as operate a world-class urea fertilizer production complex in Gode, Ethiopia. Under the partnership structure, Ethiopian Investment Holdings will hold a 40% equity stake, while Dangote Group maintains 60% ownership. The project will establish one of the world's largest single-site urea fertilizer production complexes, with production facilities boasting a combined capacity of up to 3 million metric tons per annum. For more on this, we joined this afternoon by Merid Fikir-Hannes, founder and CEO of Pragma Investment Advisory. Very good to have you with us once again, Merid. Welcome.
Pleasure to be on the show. Thank you.
Now, this project is termed the largest industrial investment in Ethiopian history. How big will the fertilizer production complex actually be, and what impact is it set to have on the country's economy?
Yes, absolutely. I think as you mentioned it earlier in your opening, I think this will be one of the largest urea fertilizer complex in the world. And for Ethiopia, I think first of all, let's say this: Ethiopia is a net importer of imported fertilizers, right? We have one of the biggest agricultural in the world, in the country. We need fertilizers in terms of to produce our food, and we entirely import our fertilizers, and we spend up to $2 billion per annum in importing fertilizers, mostly urea and DAP. right? So in terms of to have this facility in our country, and then at the same time to produce it, and also not only satisfy the country's need, but also to become an export hub within the east of Africa, it puts the countries in terms of as one of the biggest producers of fertilizer. So mind you, in Ethiopia we import up to 1.5 million metric tons of fertilizers per annum, and having this facility and producing it locally, it would unlever the country becoming food independent in terms of making sure that you have enough food production within your country. So this is a huge milestone. At the same time, and given that Ethiopia has a huge for a natural gas facility, and also part of the shareholder comprehensive agreement, it also includes that it will develop the pipeline to develop the natural gas, which is a critical input for the fertilizer as well. So it is a big milestone for the country.
It certainly is. When we look at agriculture in Ethiopia, it employs around 70% of the country's citizens. How could a more affordable and consistent fertilizer supply actually impact farmers in reducing costs?
Yes, I think like here in Ethiopia right now, like if you see most of their input cost, up to 70% of their cost is fertilizers for a farmer, right? And then at the same time, we have around 30 million household farmers in the country that relies in import of fertilizers. So in terms of having this facility, it would reduce the cost significantly, and it makes sure that Ethiopia has sustainable agriculture, and it's sustainable in terms of feeding its population, and also more importantly also exporting its production outside of the country as well. So it plays a critical role.
I'd like us to just wrap up on this really quickly, but how might the reduction of the fertilizer imports that you've been speaking about, and you mentioned Ethiopia's current annual consumption of around 750,000 tons, how is this likely to affect the country's trade deficits as well as the currency reserves?
Yes, that's a good point. So right now, the maximum amount that we import as of last year is around 1.9 million metric tons of fertilizers, right? This production facility, once it starts production after 14 months, which is after almost 3 years, it would produce up to 3 million metric tons. So basically, Ethiopia will not any longer need to import any fertilizers from the global market. So which means it would save up to at least $2 billion of foreign currency reserves that we usually spend for fertilizer would be used for the country's investment as well. So this is a big thing in terms of the need for fertilizers is growing as well. So basically, when the production starts, it would satisfy the country's import of fertilizers immediately.
All right, Merid, we'll have to leave it at that for this afternoon. But I hope we're going to have another opportunity soon just to focus on other developments that are taking place in Ethiopia today, specifically just looking at this deal between Dangote and the Ethiopian Investment Holdings. But let's make a date again for sometime next week as we look at other developments taking place in the country. We thank you for your time and insight once again, Merid.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Merid Fikiri-Hannes, founder and CEO of Pragma Investment Advisory. He takes us to exactly 2 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time. And we say bonjour, Joël.
Bonjour, Thami. Bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa. On parlera sur Vue d'Afrique aujourd'hui du coup d'envoi ce jeudi en Tanzanie de la campagne pour la présidentielle d'octobre. Mais aussi au Cameroun, un collectif d'intellectuels appelle l'opposition à s'unir derrière un candidat consensuel. Human Rights Watch utilise les autorités mauritaniennes, accuse les autorités mauritaniennes d'avoir commis de graves violations. Ce sera sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci de rester connecté. Merci, Thami.
As she says, restez connecté. That's how we as African Business bring it to a fold on this Thursday afternoon. Thank you to our spectacular team. Our producer, Mabu Bulok, our technical producer, Wandile Mate, social media talent, Butelezi, on the news desk, Jwalane Tulengwape, economics desk, Tabiso Lehoko, and for the business of sport, Figile Lingwati. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This has been your Thursday edition of Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Until we meet again, give yourself a splendid evening further. And over now to the French desk.
la perspective africaine.